All right, hello everyone. Good morning. Welcome to our May 2026 release recap. I'm Amanda. I'm going to be going over USAS this morning. We don't have any inventory today, and then we will continue on to USPS, ESS, and Ippy-Tippy after that. All right. I've got us already on our May 2026 release recap page. And we have a section here that we're kind of working in for resource highlights. So this is something like, here and there, we've been adding some new pages to our documentation, or if there's anything specific to highlight. We figured we would pop kind of the links in here, just give you like an overview of anything. Um, that's kind of brand new or relevant specifically. So this page, expenditure slash revenue account change versus cash account change is a USAS highlight for this month. And this is in the USAS appendix. So let me pop this side open here. I guess it doesn't want to do that today. Oh, there we go. So we're in our USAS user manual, and then the appendix, it's under the useful procedures. And basically what this page does is it's just going through, it's actually mimicked after a piece of classic documentation that I came across. Since we have cash account change, our version of fund change, um, has just been released. This is sort of a comparison of like, when you use each. Um, so that's out there. I may go into this more. We're going to talk about when we get to cash change. We have a training next week specific to that. So, yeah, I won't go into those details today, but that page is there for you to give a look through. Okay. And then as far as our USAS releases specifically, we had three regular releases in May. Um, And then we did have a hotfix on June 1st, which was specifically relevant to some of the things that happened in May. So I added that one on here too. As far as improvements, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is AOS manual code changes. So for fiscal year 27, there are new receipt and object codes. I have a little chart listed below that we'll look at in a second. Um, that were added, new receipt and object codes. Fund codes, there was a change to some descriptions. So I have those listed as well. Um, we made a change last year where, so basically, what we talk to AOS every year to see any code changes that happen with the account codes, anything that is going to be valid in the new year, anything that's no longer going to be valid. And in the past years, that would happen at the start of the fiscal year. Well, since we've had so many changes happening in the last couple years, and also, districts want to budget to these accounts ahead of time, we added this ability where the start date or like an end date will default when creating accounts. Basically, this ensures that when we have a code that's going to be valid starting for 27, you don't want it to be a problem if that code gets used at the very tail end of 26. So I just want to show this in the software real quick. We're just going to go in and create an account and see what that looks like. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're heading to our core accounts. Let me just move a couple things around. All right, our core accounts grid. And for this one, I'm going to do an expenditure account because we have a couple new receipt codes. We have a couple new object codes. So we're going to test an object code here. And when I go in and create an account, 829, or I'm sorry, 892 and 893, I believe were the new ones here. So if I just go enter, I just enter the bare minimum here, no start dates or anything. And when I save this, what it's going to do is it's going to run a validation against, the software knows like accounts that are valid or not. And it gives us this informational message that says object 829 is invalid before 7/1/26. Now, my account was still created. This is just informational, so it didn't stop me from making anything. Um, and then it's active. It can be used, but it has a start date of 7/1. So it can only be used for any transactions that are dated 7/1 or later, which at this point in the year, pretty much it's budgeting. It's being budgeted to, right? If there's a budget being entered in, next year budgets are entered with a data 7/1. You could have then maybe, if they're doing future year POs, anything as long as the date on the transaction is after 7/1 could be used for the if somebody were to try and, enter something this year, if they're entering it through the software, it won't even show up in the list. Um, but you would get like an error if you tried to post something with, today's date to this account. So that's kind of a little safeguard there. So I just kind of wanted to talk through like how that works and, the start date that you're seeing on there. And also, yeah, like why it'll be created with 7/1. Because that allows us to enter those in now. Fund description changes. I have those listed here. Actually, no, wait. I have those listed below. I had a couple notes on those, is why they're here. So, for the fund description changes, when we created that account, am I still here? Let's see. When we created this account, I did not put in a description. I just let it default. And whenever you do that, if you just create an account and leave it blank, it'll default based on like the AOS description. So this one has like the Pell Grant student loans in there. That's all like generating based on the account code that you used. It's adding a description. And so it'll do that for funds too. And so any newly created accounts, and here are the first two here are these funds that are created, will use the new description. If these funds exist in the software already, they are not updated automatically. So that is something that districts may want to review if they want to match these descriptions, but you can customize descriptions. So, with our software update, we can't go overwrite everybody's description because some districts may have like, may want to have a custom description in there. So that's something to note, to look at, if, or if like somebody has one of these funds and it's not updated and it's like, okay, hang on, this is a new one. Well, if it's not, automatically set to the description, it may have been created prior to the update. We also had found some additional updates back from 2025 subject code changes per the EMIS manual. So those came up and we got those updated as well. So I just kind of put everything in a chart here. We had them listed out on the release notes from the developers. So I kind of just organized, sometimes it's nice to see things differently. And we have an opportunity to do that with these release recaps. So I kind of put, here's the fun changes, here's our new receipts, the new objects, and then here are the subject changes that happened. As far as those subject changes, there were some new codes added, one code removed, and one description updated. Okay. The next thing on my list is cash account change or classics fund change. And I mentioned this at the top, but um, we have a USAS cash account change training webinar for ITC physical support staff on June 12th, 2026. So, our next Fridays with fiscal, same time, same place next week. And so I kind of have this summarized here with the highlights from cash account change. But I'm not going to go, I will see, I'm going to talk through this, but I'm not going to go super deep into this right now. Um, Last release recap, I was able to show you a preview of what that account change looks like. It's available now. We also did a newsletter. So here's a link to the newsletter for May 2026 with some information about cash account change. Um, and then the cash account change itself, it's found under the account change page on under utilities, and we do have that documented in the user manual as well. The resource that I mentioned at the start also for cash account change. So we have a lot going on with that right now, a lot out there. I know for you all it's a lot to like, wrap your head around, get started on. So that's why, next week when we hit that training, um, we'll kind of just go through and talk through the whole process and what it does and how it works and that sort of thing. Okay, for the highlights, I have kind of organized into a couple different categories here. The following restrictions apply. So, um, when you're going to use cash account change, it is for specific situations. So, first of all, a cash account must be changed to another valid cash account. And this lists like the special cost center range, but basically, special cost centers that are 001 through 8999 are not a separate cash account. Those all roll up into the 000, right? So you just have to, it has to be an actual cash account that would show on your cash account grid. That's the first one. Second restriction, the new cash account cannot already exist. So it's not a merge of two existing accounts, but a movement of monies from one cash account to a completely new cash account, including the underlying accounts there. So it's going to, the actual change is going to create the new cash account. And then this last one on the restrictions, cash accounts with the special cost center of all zeros can be changed to a special cost center that starts with nine, only if no duplicate accounts would occur. So if you have the special cost center of all zeros, you also could be using, higher special cost centers as long as they don't start with nine, and they would still roll up into this fund. So if I have two accounts that are exactly the same, except for one has a special cost center of all zeros, and the other has a special cost center of 0001. When that goes to a 9,000 account, that would kind of map to the same account. And so we have added like errors and warnings for that if that would occur. So that is something that you could see. But so there's a cleanup opportunity there if that's the case. Here's what's changed when you run an account change. All accounts that existed under the old cash account will be created under the new cash account. The current fiscal year transactions tied to the existing account will be updated to reflect the new account. A budget adjustment is created on the expenditure accounts with a prior year encumbrance to move the carryover amount to the new account. That's one thing specifically we'll take a look at in the training and talk about. This change applies to the current fiscal year forward. No history is being changed. And then, as with any account change, the old account is marked inactive. As far as like a when, there is a scheduling option, so it could be run immediately, it could be scheduled. They must have like a 45-minute buffer between just because we don't want it to be like, you don't want to schedule cash changes back to back to back, because they're doing a lot. But yeah, so that's the basic overview of cash account change there. That's our big new one for USAS. Now, as we were working on cash account change, some of these other things are somewhat related. So, as far as bugs that we have listed, we corrected the account change process to update AR billing, AR payments, and AR ledgers. So, actually, within the testing of cash account change, we found that the objects weren't being updated even with a regular account change. So, we made sure that when cash account change is released, it does do that. And then we went back and said, okay, the regular account change, let's make sure that this also updates everything properly. Now, AR posts a receipt, and the receipts were all being changed by account change. It was just specifically billing and payments and ledgers that we needed to update. And what we did too is we corrected this with the bug issue so that it doesn't happen going forward. But we also included a patch to update any previous transactions. So anything that, if somebody did do this and something didn't get updated, it'll be corrected now to match what their account changes were. We also corrected the account change detail view fiscal year. So there was like an odd thing that I think we just found internally where if you had clicked, if you clicked in a certain way on the account change page and then you opened a view one, it would like show the current year even though that wasn't the year for that change. So that does not happen anymore. Everything looks appropriately how it should when you're trying to look at those account changes now. And then, okay, so for the patches, and the internal updates, the first thing we consolidated some ledgers to remove redundancy and improve performance, eliminate unused custom field support on ledgers. So we did some cleanup here. And as a result of that cleanup, we actually had some performance improvements, which I don't know that that's specifically what they were like seeking with this. We were trying to do some cleanup, but then, hey, this is awesome. It ended up in this benefit of some better performance. So the expenditure process transactions, things like POs, invoices, those have an average increase of 25 to 38%. Receipt and refund transactions increased 15 to 20%. And then transfers, advances, distributions, average increased 13% and 25%. So that's always nice. A couple patches here. So a patch to update journal entries for all void refunds. Um, the patch set the posting period associated with the void date on the journal entry. I think this one was like a pretty specific situation. Um, And then the next one, the patch to update the account code on the AR payments. So this is related to the bug that I just talked about. This was the actual patch where it went in and made sure that if there was anything from previous account changes that was thrown off, or that wasn't updated rather with the billing and payments, it's now correct. Okay, and then two more here. We corrected a problem specific to anonymized data, where a cash account change failed for a prior year purchase order. So, this one, the good news is that we were not able to recreate this specific problem in any backups of districts. So we don't believe this was an issue that would have happened for anybody that was running account change in their data. But we did have it was in anonymized data and like the demo data that you all at the ITC may use for your trainings and stuff like that. If you were trying to test or maybe trying to show this for your year-end meetings, there was an issue that somebody ran into, and so we released a hotfix to correct that. Um, so if the account change was failing due to the specific error, that is now no longer happening. So that was our fix there. And then we also corrected the account change view to prevent applying a completed account change request, which that's what's intended is that only new or failed status can be applied. Once it's completed, you don't want to apply it again because it's already been updated. Okay. So that's what I have for USAS. We don't have anything for inventory this month. Next month though we should. I know there's one that is in the works right now for a future release. Do we have any USAS questions? Or are we ready to switch over for USPS? Okay. Well, Bella, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Amanda.
No problem. Let me stop sharing here.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope everyone's enjoying this nice weather. Mother Nature's finally giving us a break. It's been rough for the past few months. So I will be covering the USPS releases. There were two regular releases and then two hot fixes in the past month. The first one has to do with SubHub. There's a lot of work being done as we're ramping up the release of this new module. So there was work done on the syncing of the substitutes to SubHub. So anyone who's marked as a substitute in payroll will now sync into SubHub, and I have SubHub open. So basically the required fields for the syncing of the substitutes will be all included. So this sync will be looking at the first name, last name field, the email address, phone number, and position codes. So these are all the required fields that will need to be completed for the information to come over. I believe it will still come over, even if the position codes are missing or there's any type of information missing. But those would have to be addressed for things to work correctly in this new system. Okay. So the next one, there was a change made to the way that document retrieval works from the document storage module. I'm sure you have all encountered errors, a lot of those red boxes when you were trying to retrieve or import larger documents. So there was a limitation of 30 megabytes per file. That's when those errors were triggered. So they made a change where the system will actually split these documents over 40 megabytes into parts no larger than 30. And then these documents will then be reassembled upon retrieval. So it's just a workaround to eliminate the error that I'm sure everyone has been dealing with these migrations. So there were some improvements made. So this is an interesting part. So there were some improvements and reversals of improvements made with the attendance create viewer. We have heard a lot of feedback. We appreciate everyone relaying and sharing feedback from districts on the performance of the new format of the attendance create viewer. This was affecting mainly manual entries because there have been performance issues with the attendance create grid. So the developers decided to change it to an inline editing grid option, which helped with the speeding up of the performance. However, it was not user-friendly, and we listened and we heard everyone loud and clear, and the developers decided to revert all the changes until further notice. So what this inline grid editing did, unfortunately, it had a limitation when where it was not allowing tabbing through these fields. And I know like everyone's used to just they have a process in place and it's a lot faster instead of clicking and selecting all the options from the drop-down menus. So there will be additional changes coming once the system will be upgraded to a new framework, one in 7 or 8. That will be happening sometime in the future. We don't have an exact time for that. But hopefully with that change, the whole process will be similar to how it was handled previously and what it got reverted back to. So the next set of improvements were actually applied to the qualified overtime issues. So a lot of the work has been finalized. The developers reviewed everything that's been reported based on prior changes, and I believe at this point in time, the system is at a point where this is how it's going to stay, and it's ready to go for the upcoming calendar year and closings, although we still have fiscal year end to go through. So the qualified overtime related enhancements involved a patch. So there was a patch applied in release version 2026 8.0. It was designed to find all historical pay amounts of with a type of blended overtime and overtime for calendar year 2026. And then all of these pay amounts that are marked as included, determined by the FLSA overtime flag, these will have a qualified overtime value calculated. And then once these values are calculated, these will now be written to payroll history on payroll post, and these will be stored in the historical pay amount table. This is not how it used to work, and this means a major improvement because now, like you have the historical pay amounts to revert to it, to go back to. Previously, it was just like whatever the system calculation was. It wasn't written to history. So with this change, they also implemented a new report, which hopefully you will find very helpful. So the report is under reports and qualified overtime report. Oh, of course. Okay, so this report will allow districts to do all their validations now based on the overtime amount, so they can select specific date ranges, and they can run it in different formats, sorted by employee name or number, or select specific employees to run it on if they're just validating certain ones. And once this report is generated, it will show in this format. And I don't have everyone on here because I have to post my payroll. So it will have the payday, the pay type, the overtime flag, and the pay amount, and then the qualified overtime rate. That this is the amount that will be posted on their W-2. What's nice about this report, and they might find it helpful as they're doing their validations. So if corrections are needed or they decide that they want to back out some of the prior amounts, if they were not expecting the calculations to work the way they do, you can run this report in a CSV format, and it will produce a file that can be easily used for making corrections and do a mass upload of adjustments under core adjustments. I lost my Excel file. I have 3 screens, I'm sorry. Found it. Struggle is real. Okay, so it would be in this format, and then the headers can be adjusted according to the mass load header formats we have posted under the wiki. And so these amounts, if they try to back them out, they can turn these into negative values and then make any type of corrections as needed as they do their validations. So this is a very helpful tool in validating and making corrections. Any questions on this? Also, they were very generous with the overtime related changes because there's another report that was made available, and that is the qualified overtime pay report. So this is a report that districts can run while processing payroll. And let me show you what it looks like. Okay. So I have a payroll in progress and I have some employees with overtime pay. And this is where the report will be available and displaying. So it's very nice because they can do all their qualified overtime paid validations before posting payroll. So if they can run it in multiple formats as well, they can do page break on employee. And then once they generate a report, they can review it and make sure that everyone appears the way they intended it, or they can go back and still make changes on their current pay. So this is what the report looks like. So this will be also very helpful for them to be able to run it prior to posting payroll. Okay. And then there were a couple of additional changes made, also related to the overtime property that was also added to the historical the historical payment field was added to the W-2 report. So that's where it will capture the QOT amounts from for the calendar year. And then they also added the qualified overtime as an optional property to the year-to-date report. So I think I have to post this payroll in order to have these show. And there were some performance improvements on payroll posting. Okay, good. 10 seconds is not bad at all. So for the year-to-date report, they have this additional checkbox, include qualified overtime on report. So they can select that and run it as part of the year-to-date report. And now whoever had overtime, please give me someone. Okay, so it will show on this report as well if that box is checked. And that other one, it was the W-2 report, also includes an option. Yeah, no. Oh, what the W-2 report does is now it's looking at the pay amount history. So there's like no visible option here, but what it does, it will pull the amounts from the pay amount history for the qualified overtime. Okay, so these were all the enhancements on the overtime related items. Any questions? Don't see anything in the chat. Okay. Moving on to some additional improvements. They added a new option under the payroll item templates to have the name change for those. This option was not available with the initial release of this new interface. So as you know, they added the payroll item template option, and then these different template names could not be edited previously, and they updated it where it can be. I think it's on there. Okay, so it's under this icon. So they added a separate icon just for editing the name of the template. Okay. Uh, the next change had to do, these are mainly corrections. So the federal tax item exempt property was added to the federal payroll item, and they had to make some corrections to the tooltip. So as you know, the payroll item, this exam box, this was added recently, and then it has a tooltip, and this tooltip was incorrect. It was actually the copy of this one, so they corrected that. Another correction needed to be done under the suppress SSN report options. There was a typo in the message, so that was corrected. And then along the same lines, there were many updates completed that pertain to the concealing of Social Security numbers. This has been a requested item, and it's been on this year's roadmap. So a lot of changes were applied. I'm sure you've noticed that as you navigate through different report versions and grids that would include Social Security numbers. Now you have the option to select suppress. Same thing applies to the checks XML file, the direct deposit XML file, year-to-date report, W-2 report, and SDRS per pay report. Also, we received some feedback that users would have liked to see the SDRS advanced reports have this functionality as well. So this change will be actually released today. So there were some additional reports added that you'll be able to see after applying today's release. Okay, and then same thing with this change on the on suppressing Social Security numbers in template reports and grids. They added a new permission, which is the USPS Privacy SSN. It will work similar to the USAS Privacy Tax ID role. And this role was added by default to these preset roles. So the administrators, group managers, legacy dates users, and standard users will automatically have this permission added. And let me go to roles. So I'll look at the standard user. You'll see this USPS Privacy SSN is automatically included. However, if districts, and I know there's so many variations of roles out there, if they ask for custom roles, and that's what they're utilizing, and it could be mainly, the standard user with all the main permissions, but with some additional ones, or they may have wanted to remove some of the default permissions. So if you have a custom role, this privacy SSM will not show. So if you receive reports of potentially USPS manager or standard users not having access to the social security number view. The main reason is most likely that they have a custom rule. So in that case, you would have to go and add this permission. And we've had quite a few reports of that early on when this was released. Okay. The federal tax item has been allowed to show the W-4 exempt option, which I just showed to you when I was, I guess I just got ahead of myself. I was showing you the error with the tooltip. But in the same step, as you could see, that exempt box was added to the payroll item. There was also another correction made to the way the system was doing the validations on the max amount. So there was a release recently where the system would produce an error if there's no entry. Let's see if I can make this larger. Somewhat. It's better. So previously, whenever deduction max type was selected, the system would allow users to save it if there was no max amount entered. So initially, when they released this enhancement, the system was only producing the error if this max amount field was blank. However, it defaults to 0, so they had to update it where it also looks at the 0 value when saving, not just the blank option. So now you should see an error every time there's this field is blank or it has 0. I just have to find my way out of this. Just happened. Okay. It zoomed in everything. Okay, and then I saved the best for last on the improvement side. So there were some major testing done in the past few months. We've had reports of extremely slow processing times when it came to pay reports or deleting a payroll, modifying payroll. So the developers actually set up a task force to take a look at it, and they made some major improvements. So they were able to get the payroll delete service to run in a manner where the UI will respond immediately when the job starts. And then the testing reduced the process from 41 minutes to less than 2 minutes. So the developers tested these on some of the largest districts. Those are the ones who were reporting major issues. I mean, those were extremely long run times. So that's a major improvement. And then the payroll report as well, the feature shows now an average performance improvement of 83%. So this, should be a noticeable change, hopefully well received by the districts. And there's still work being done on these improvements, so those will keep happening. But this was a very significant change compared to previous performance values. So the payroll delete and payroll modify changes. This is only it says payroll modify, but it only applies to the payroll delete portion of the payroll modify job. So whenever you're modifying a pay group or you make a change and then you modify all pay groups, the performance will be still similar to how it was because this payroll modify pertains to the payroll delete specifically. Just a heads up on that because the payroll modify should still not take too long. And if you see some really, extremely long run times, please reach out. But those were not the main problematic ones. It was always the payroll delete and the payroll report. Okay, any questions so far? No, we have a quiet group today. Okay, then let's look into the bugs situation here. So we had a bug that was introduced with the patch for the pay amount history um, pertaining to the overtime. So this patch only affected this bug only affected one district. I believe it was missing a compensation, and this patch could not like the entire system was blocked, so they couldn't even log in. So this was just just a little scary situation that first morning after the release. There was also a bug introduced back in February, end of February of 2026. Yeah. Right around the time when document storage was released. And this issue, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, it's been reported to us by several ITCs and districts. So I don't have document storage in my test account, so I will try to illustrate it this way. So what's been happening is, as you see on here, in February 27th would have been the last date when these files were generated. So checks, PDF, and then direct deposit, PDF, and XML files stopped getting archived starting this date. And as you see, May 15th, it starts back up because there was a bug fix, the one I'm just talking about right now. So this bug fix corrected the problem as to where these will start generating. However, there's another layer to this because all those missing files will need to be addressed as well. And the developers are working on a patch where districts will not need to go back and regenerate all these files manually to have them archived. So once this patch is released, I have it right here. It's scheduled for release version 11, which would be in 2 weeks. So it won't be included in today's, but tentatively is scheduled for next Friday, not next Friday, what's into on the 19th. So if you have districts reach out, just make them aware that this is being worked on. If they prefer to have it sooner, they can go in there and manually generate these because now it will actually populate these in the document storage. This also applies to file archive. So for districts or ITCs that haven't converted and everyone's still on the file archive, they would be missing these files as well. So it applies to everybody. And as I mentioned, the fix will be coming out soon, and it's no longer an issue with the ones that are generated going forward. We're just trying to address the retroactive missing files. Any questions on that? I'm sorry, Jenna, I missed that. Oh, I see. So are they working on an error message for when the specific date max type is set, but no data is entered? We do have a feedback issue for this. So uh, once again, this is something that has to go through the prioritization committee. But if you have multiple districts who you would like to submit these requests from, that will increase the count. So, the more requests we have, the more it helps the issue. Okay, thanks, Jim. Um, um, where was I? So there was another problem with the user interface, and this happened when the new SSN privacy permission was released. There was we actually called this the disappearing SSN phenomenon. It was just really weird because the permission, like the SSN was visible for a short amount of time and then it disappeared, and then they had to clear cache and then it reappeared again. So this was only affecting custom rules. So anyone with a custom rule where this additional permission was added, those were the only ones experiencing this problem, and that has been resolved. Handle a possible null pointer exception in the email direct deposit cleanup job. So this was reported by a few districts, ITCs, that started noticing that the newly or recently introduced cleanup job under the job scheduler, which it's for the email direct deposit cleanup. So this job was failing because every time there was a scheduled, a pending job scheduled for a future date, it caused this job to fail if there was a pending job at the time this was running. So that is what this issue refers to, and that's been corrected. W2C record related fixes. So we've had some changes with the W2C record processing, especially the state records, because they now accept electronic submissions. So the developers made some changes to the system to accommodate that. Also, when we were testing that, there was an issue where you did the filtering. Okay, well, now this is, I am sorry, I don't know what's happening here. Well, that is interesting. Let me let me find a way back to the normal layout. Maybe now. Okay. Because zooming in and out doesn't really help. And here we are in May. I'm trying to zoom in to make it more visible, but okay. So, we're talking about bugs. Let me see, I'll try this. Okay. So when there was a change made because previously if you had two W2C records, you were not able to see if there was already one created because of the way this process tab was filtering. So they changed it so you can actually see if you have multiple records for the same employee. Because what happened, in case you already started working on one and it wasn't processed, you couldn't really see it. And then you started creating a second one. And that's whenever there was already a process record in there, it would not pull in the correct information when you ran the W2C form. So it would only default to the previous one and it would not recognize any updates you applied to the W2C record, to the additional one. So they corrected both issues, so the updates will be reflected on the W2C now. And you can easily also tell how many W2C correction records you have in the grid. Okay, the quarter report. So this is a pretty important one. We had quite a few reports last year during last quarter, during quarter end, balancing that there were some issues because the system was not accounting for any negative error adjustments on the Medicare item for when refunds were handled through a negative error adjustment. So this was only like for affecting employees with Medicare pickup. And these negative error adjustments were not showing in the employee contribution amount, was not being reduced by the refund amount, basically. So those employee contribution amounts were inflated. So this should no longer be a problem now with this quarter end. Hopefully that will save some time and headaches. And then there was one more change applied to the document storage grid where, you know, they added the select all option. Okay, and then just a few more patches on internal changes that are not visible in the application. They're continuing to work on the implementation of new public REST APIs as we're moving away from SOAP service. And then multiple improvements were done to the internal services handling database optimistic locking. This is once again, that's just a behind the scenes type of change. And then some additional changes also pertaining to the REST API work that's being done right now. And this is all in a nutshell. Do you have any questions? Thank you, Lori, for addressing the questions. And if not, then I'll pass it on to Mary. Thank you so much and have a beautiful Friday.
Hey everybody, good morning and happy Friday. I'm going to share my screen with you and talk about ESS first. Okay, is everyone seeing the correct screen here? The release recap for May. So the first thing that we had was two regular releases, or one on May 8th and then one on May 22nd. And the first item is a new feature that they added for the administrator view. So I will show you that. It's where they can change the start and end times for in the user profile. Hold on. So if I go into leave management and then I go to this user profile default leave times, I can see which employees have set their default start and stop times. And I can also export the grid by printing their profiles. And I can also edit them. So if I want to make sure that Val has a start and stop time, um, I can go in here and add, 7 a.m. and then put 4 p.m. and then save that, and you'll see that Val now has a start and stop time. So that is used usually in conjunction with the leave request so that they'll have a default start and stop time in there. Okay, then we had some improvements. The administrator can now configure whether or not an approved leave request can be edited. There are some districts who do not want leave requests that have already gone through the approval process to be allowed to edit them. So to fix that, you would go to System Configuration, and then ESS Functionality. And then right here is the checkbox for Edit Approved Leave Requests. And if they want to allow that, they would check it. If they do not want to allow that, they would uncheck it. Okay. The next item I have is the dialogues that come out of for error messages have been improved. So there were several of them that they did that with. And they use a common library for that so that the messages are common to several systems. They added addresses to the USPS building codes. And I believe some of you have already seen this. It will go into USPS. Under the core area, you would go to codes and then building. Search for the building codes. And in here, they can now add in the address for that particular building code. And the reason that this is also in the ESS area as well as USPS is because when an employee's position has a leave request attached to it, that leave request has the building code based on what position it is. When they start to use the sub-hub system, that building code that's attached to the position in ESS will dictate which building address that is attached to that leave request. So that way the sub knows which building to go to. So it's all in preparation for sub-hub. The way that works is that when you sync positions, that building code comes in, and then when the leave request goes out to the sub-hub area, that building code's attached, and then in sub-hub, it takes that building code and there is cached information in there about the address, so that will come from USPS. So it will be important to add those addresses here. If you have any questions on that, let me know. The next item is audit reports. They have added leave blackout dates and timesheet holidays to the options inside of the audit report for ESS. So if you go into system audit reports, the object type, you can now see timesheet holidays here, and then the leave blackout dates right here. And you can run audits on those as well. This one is I thought that is a nice new feature, but it's actually an improvement. because although you could have export timesheet information into a .csv, now you have the option of posting it directly to payroll. And the choices that you have within that screen actually correlate to the choices inside of USPS when you're uploading the .csv. So instead of doing it here in USPS, you would do it in ESS. The only note of caution I have here is that these are not in the same order as the ones in USPS. So just keep that in mind. If I go to ESS and Timesheet Manager, and you want to do a timesheet export, you now have the option of, I'll just take this one, picking direct to USPS or .csv. So if I have the .csv, it's the normal choices that you had. And if you pick direct to USPS, you have all these choices to pick from. I also wanted you to see that in the documentation for the timesheet manager area, we have, did I go too far? Export option direct to USPS. And it has all the instructions here on how to interpret these, and they match with what is in USPS. So you'll have all the sections explained here on what they can do. Any questions on that piece of it? Because I know that's a lot. And I'm sorry, I lost my chat button somewhere here. Okay. No questions. There was also another improvement where you were able to accidentally drag a calendar leave request from one date to another date and drop it, but it wasn't doing anything. So they disabled that capability because the system's not set up to do that kind of thing. So they did fix that. Editing an approved leave will now flow to timesheets. So I'm going to talk about that one a little bit with my friend. Oh, wait, I have to back up. I knew I was going to forget this. So sorry about that. On the direct post, there's two more things that I wanted to talk about. One is when you do the direct post, there is a CSV that's created, and it will let you know how many records successfully loaded and if there's any errors. One of the errors you could possibly see is that if someone was terminated between the time they did their timesheet and when it was exported, it will give you an error message that says the attendance entry cannot be posted to a position for which the job status is terminated. So then you know why that it wasn't posted. And then the second thing that I wanted to tell you is that if a line item has 0 in it and they're trying to post it, direct post it, it will also give you it's kind of a warning message. It just says that the item was marked as exported. However, it's not posted to USPS because it's got a length of 0. So then you know why it wasn't posted. Okay, sorry about the going backwards there. Now I'm going to go back into editing an approved leave that on the timesheet. So if I go, I think I can see it from here. Timesheets. Oops. And I'll look at one for Brent. I did this earlier in the week. So he has a timesheet, and on May 5th, I took one of his approved leaves and changed it from a whole day to a half day, and it was reflected in the timesheet here. And then I took one that was, and this particular instance of it, Brent is on a split shift. And when I was adding a whole day leave, it was only putting it on one of these originally. And one of the fixes that you'll see in the bug area is that they needed to fix it so that that whole day leave would span both shifts. So now they can enter one leave request for the whole day, and it will come into the timesheet as 2 half days. And all that is also reflected in the audit trail when they make changes, approval trail, sorry. Let's see if I can. I'm gonna check my notes here a second and make sure I don't forget to tell you anything, so you don't have to backtrack. Got that, I got that. There is a notification. I will bring this over here so you can see this. So they will receive a notification when a timesheet has been changed, and then when it's returned, it's set back to initiated, and then they'll receive another one when it's approved again. Okay. The next item was an improved message when leave request was changed. If someone edited a leave request and then it needed to go through a new group change. So if I changed it from a driver position to a secretary position, and it has the, military leave type, if that combination is not set up in a workflow that matches that, it will now give an error message so that you know that it's not a correct selection, or that a workflow needs set up for that. And I say workflow because I came from kiosk and now it's called group chain. So sorry about that. It is a group chain that it needs to follow. The bugs that we had was a edit button in the user grid was showing edit mode while editing. So they fixed that. It's just a minor change on that one. And then when you enter the leave request for the full day, the timesheet needed to reflect 2 lines, and it did, as I showed you on that other screen. For internals, they made some framework changes for the repositories, and then they went through and made sure that any sensitive information in the metrics API was masked. Okay, any questions on ESS? Okay, I am going to switch to Ippy and we also had 2 regular releases for Ippy. One of the biggest ones is that you can now use it without USPS integration. The instructions for any new district, whether they are using USPS or not, is in this document here. And when you're setting up a district without USPS integration, You would need to also include an employees table. If you are using the supervisory functions inside of Ippy-Dippy, then you would also need to have the positions table. Otherwise, you don't need it. And then if you are using building codes in the committees, then you would need to set up the building table. So all those instructions are inside of this document here. To configure whether or not they are going to use USPS integration, this is where you would go to set that up. And I'm sorry, I forgot to bring up a Ippy-Dippy. Oh no, that's not the one I want. I just wanted to show you where that was at. Oh, it doesn't like me this morning. Try that one more time. Yay. Okay, so you would go to System and then Configuration. And then this is the USPS integration configuration here. So if I want USPS integrated, I would enable it. If not, I would uncheck that and it would be disabled. Okay. Improvements. The kiosk loaders, all except for the attachment loaders, have been disabled. And if any information is to be loaded in the future, you'll need to use the mass loaders to load that information, or you do it from, manually from scratch. If you are going to load something that was missing, you would need to make sure that it matches whatever you currently have in Ippy-Dippy. So whatever is between Ippy-Dippy and what you're loading, and I'm sorry, I'll fix this. Whatever is between Ippy-Dippy and what was on the extracted file that you have need to match at that point, because if they are already live, you want to make sure that the information goes into the correct plan or activity that they are currently working on. In the future, they are going to remove the attachment loaders as well, but they are not there yet. So just wanted to let you know that that's coming up next. If you have any questions on loading or mass loading, please put a ticket in for us and we'll help you with that. Bugs for Ippy-Dippy. So the professional certifications were not getting uploaded for teaching field or endorsement, and that has been fixed and working. And there was a bug that had duplicated the initiated approval trail entries for activities. That was fixed so that wouldn't happen again. And also there was a patch to clean up the duplicated entries that happened during that process. And then the last one was a bug fix that where the password expiration configuration was set, however, it wasn't respecting that information, so the date wasn't getting set correctly. That has been fixed and is working properly now. And they also went through the Spring Metrics API here for the patches piece and masked the sensitive information that might be on the Spring Metrics. And that's all I have. If you have any questions on that, please put them in the chat or put in a ticket. And I don't know if I'm closing this or if Michelle has anything more to say.
I don't, Mary. I'm good. I
Okay.
did post a couple things in the chat
Okay.
regarding the document storage Google Sheet that I sent out to the ITC staff. So if you didn't get the email, I apologized. I used a different distribution list. So in case you didn't receive that, I do have the link out here in the chat where you could fill in. We're just trying to get an idea of just where everyone's currently at with their document store migrations. And then I know you were all probably wondering if we were going to talk about SubHub today, and we're not. We're waiting. We're waiting until it gets into production officially, since it's currently in an early access release. So we'll worry about that when we do our July recap. So other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend.